Thank you everyone for joining us. Very excited to have all of you here today. I'm Wendy Strout. I am the State Director for the Human Rights Campaign, and I use she, her pronouns. And we're very excited to have our participants here today. We're excited to have our attendees here today. We are AFT, Fair Wisconsin, GSAFE, and HRC all came together to, knowing that school board issues are kind of a hot topic issue, especially when it comes to LGBTQ plus students. We wanted to really offer some guidance to people who are running for school board, people who were running, who are school board members, people who want to be supportive and have affirming school districts. So we wanted to provide this webinar for all of you. And we are joined with teachers, school board members, candidates, as well as families. And so you're going to hear from a bunch of different perspectives. And at the end, you'll also get a toolkit that we will send out to everybody that can give you more guidance as well. But with that, I am going to ask Sean to read a land acknowledgement agreement that we always like to share because we are Wisconsin and we have several tribal nations that are home, that Wisconsin is home. So wanted to turn it over to Sean O'Brien from Fair Wisconsin.
Thank you, Wendy. So we acknowledge the circumstances that led to the forced removal of Indigenous people and honor their legacy of resistance and resilience. This history of genocide and colonization informs our work and vision for a collaborative future. We recognize and respect the inherent sovereignty of the First Nations within the boundaries of the state of Wisconsin. It is important for us to give the utmost respect to those who inhabited this unsurrendered land before us. We need to know where we have been as a people, where we are now because of our history, to see where we are going and where we want to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. So with that, I would like you to meet all of our sponsors, and co-sponsors of this webinar. We're going to start off with AFT Wisconsin. I'm going to introduce AFT. We have some people a little bit under the weather, but our partners at AFT Wisconsin, they've been supporters of all students and work with educators and districts to be more welcoming and inclusive. And so I am now going to turn it over to Fair Wisconsin to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Sean O'Brien, he, him. I'm the advocacy and organizing strategist at Fair Wisconsin. The executive director, Megan McDonnell, is also on the call tonight. Fair Wisconsin is Wisconsin's only statewide LGBTQ civil rights advocacy organization.
Thank you. And GSAFE?
Thanks, Wendy. Hey, everybody. My name is Brian J. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm one of the co-executive directors at GSAFE. We're a statewide education organization focused on making sure our trans and non-binary and LGBTQ plus young people are not only safe, but thriving and feeling affirmed and included.
Thank you. And as I said, Human Rights Campaign, I'm the state director, she, her pronouns, and we are the part of the largest LGBTQ civil rights organization in the country, and we work alongside our partners in each state to further equality for all LGBTQ people. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So we're going to start off with Kristen Keyser. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. My name is Kristen Keyser. I am a second-year member of the West Allis West Milwaukee School Board. I'm also a fourth grade teacher at Indian Community School. Certainly not my fourth year, but been a big proponent of HRC for many years, and I'm just honored to be here tonight.
Wendy, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Kathy, and I am a proud parent of a non-binary high school student who is with us tonight.
Hello, my name is Quill. I use they them pronouns, and I am a senior.
Thank you. Laura.
Hi, my name's Laura Kruse. I am a member of Local 1275 here in Ashland, and I work with a wide variety of students and believe that it's imperative that all students and staff members are safe in their work environment.
Thank you. Leah.
Hi, Leah Lipska. I am the current board clerk of the Mount Horeb Area School District. I am in my 9th year and up for re-election this year, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm Nick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Ross. I use they, them pronouns. I work for Diverse and Resilient, which is the largest LGBTQ nonprofit in the state of Wisconsin. I work for their anti-violence program out of our Appleton office. So I am bringing that to this discussion tonight, but the main hat I'm wearing is as a candidate, a first-time candidate for the Appleton Area School District School Board. My fiance is a teacher in the district, and through my work, I have worked with students and families across the state, including in our district, providing resources and support. So part of my candidacy, one of my main priorities is to leverage all of the great connections I've made with local resource providers in our community to benefit all students and families in the district. So I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I'm hoping to learn from all of the other wonderful speakers here tonight as well.
Thank you. And Kimberly.
Thank you for inviting me as well. My name is Kimberly Saylor. I'm the current president of the Mount Horeb Area School District's Board of Education. I'm also involved in our local PFLAG chapter, and I'm a kindergarten educator with the Monona Grove School District.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm very excited to have all of our panelists here today. So we're just going to jump into some questions, and if we have time, feel free to drop some questions in the chat, and Michele will help us monitor, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end. So the first question is for our school board members and our candidates. How do you view the role of the school board in protecting LGBTQ+ students? And anyone can jump in first.
Well, something that we recently did was reviewed our policy. I brought up the fact that we need to make sure we are reviewing our policies and made sure that we have she, her, he, him, they, them across the board, that we have protections for our transgender students, for privacy in the schools. And actually what we're moving toward more is more privacy options for students versus splitting between one or the other. We've also included direct language in all of our policies that protect cisgender, transgender, non-binary, everybody in between. So that is, while we might have a board that's very supportive, one day there might be a board that isn't. And so we put into policy now what we are going to do to protect our kids, and just say flat across the board, that's how we're doing it here in West Allis.
I'd be happy to go next. Piggybacking on Kristen, yes, the primary role of a school board member is to create policy. So we do need to make sure that we've done everything we can to make sure that we don't exclude anyone and to give everyone a fair chance at school success. Also, you will probably have an opportunity to write equity statements and also anti-racist statements. And please be strong and clear in your language. You want to watch for passive language like we hope to provide or we strive to include all, and say instead we will provide, we will include, no exceptions. Lastly, we need to demonstrate to our community that we will not tolerate discrimination or hate, and prove that by taking appropriate disciplinary action to those who violate our students' rights.
Thank you. Anyone else? Leah.
Yeah, we also to piggyback off what Kimberly said, since we're in the same district, but we've also just developed a framework So when we're going to do anything, be it a field trip or anything, we review our new equity framework to see, are we not thinking about inclusion in any way, shape, or form? How is this going to affect all of our students? And again, changing all of our policies, which has been quite an undertaking.
I just wanted to give the experienced board members a chance to share first. So I really appreciate, I'm taking some of those tips with me as I continue my campaign. And, you know, I would say I agree with the priority is policy development, inclusive, equitable policy development, making sure that things like gender identity and gender expression are like explicitly stated in non-discrimination policies. And, you know, I think the other school board members spoke about the policy development aspect of it pretty well. I would also say just like, you know, generating an explicit culture of support for LGBTQ students in your actions as a board member, in your activities throughout the community, because I think when that starts at the top at the school board level, that helps to create a culture of acceptance and affirmation for LGBTQ youth. And I guess, I mean, something that I would like to see in our district is I would like to see the school board members actually get training on how to affirm LGBTQ youth, because I feel like if there's a groundwork that everybody shares, then you can get more buy-in from all the different members on creating inclusive and equitable policies to affirm LGBTQ youth. And we know that you don't know what you don't know. So people in positions of power on the school board should, you know, it's their duty to be well informed. So I think that providing training to school board members would help do that.
I'd like to piggyback off of Nick, Leah, Kim, everybody else saying, you know, we have equity standards at our district as well. And something that a board member needs to do is you pull it up every time you're talking at committee. You pull it up when we're talking about new ideas so that they don't get pushed aside like, oh, we've got these great equity, you know, statements. They're living, breathing, and should be thought of every decision you make for your school, for your kids.
Great, thank you, everyone. Those are great responses, and I love that. I love that vision of you. So the next question for school board members and candidates is, you know, what advice do you have for school board candidates who are currently running, who want to be good allies, but are also facing a small minority of people who want to erase LGBTQ students and curriculum?
I'll go. My advice is progress has never been a failing solution to anything. Progress such as discussions we're having now to protect our transgender students, progress of having equity statements, progress of changing pronouns in policy. You're always on the winning side of history when you are focusing on that progress. Never be afraid to be who you are, who you support, because the loudest people in the room aren't always right. You will have more people come out of the woodwork and say, oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so happy you're doing this. I just don't want to get those people involved on what we're saying. And I think it's really important to always validate our kids. At the end of the day, they're kids and we are their adults and we are protecting everything we can for them. So don't be afraid. Be out there.
I'm happy to go next. Another piece of advice would be to get to know which community groups are already working on this cause and immediately offer your support publicly, because you're going to find that there's movers and shakers in your town who have been on this path a very long time and likely have already worked with your districts on specific issues. I can give you one relevant example for the school board members. Wisconsin state law requires that we create a human growth and development committee whose role is to advise the school board on the design and implementation of the curriculum on this topic. And also that law further states that this committee must be comprised of parents, teachers, school administrators, pupils, healthcare professionals, and members of your clergy. So while this human growth and development curriculum only needs to be approved by the school board every 5 years, it's typically the people who volunteer for that committee who want to see inclusive and welcoming schools and curriculums, and they're going to advocate for your district efforts year-round.
I'm gonna talk just a little bit from the candidate perspective, like not on a board yet. But I will say, unfortunately, so like I've received so much overwhelming support. It's been amazing as like an out LGBTQ candidate. It's not something I was expecting. Something I was expecting was to get targeted because of my identity, and that has happened. And the attacks are vicious. I'm not going to repeat anything that has been tossed at me, but most of these things happen on social media. Thankfully, I have a great support system so that I can rely on them to like complain and just like be upset about the hateful things people are saying. But I would really like to see other candidates supporting each other. So, if you notice that an out LGBTQ candidate is getting targeted because of their identity, I would say, please, like, allyship is a verb. Stand up and say something about it. Bullying, if you as a candidate do not want bullying in our schools, we should feel the same way about, bullying that is happening to each other, any one of us who is being targeted because of our identity. So I would love to see more of that in my race, because, I guess I'm being a little vulnerable here, I guess, but like as a first-time candidate, you can tell yourself they're just trolls and try to move on, but it's hard and it sticks with you. And it's nice when people demonstrate their support in a public way.
Thank you for that. That's all really great advice. Leah.
Yeah, I will say that anytime I've ever met with someone who's considering running for the board, the first thing I tell them is you have to have thick skin. You can make decisions that you think are so minor. We had a discussion about possibly offering free coffee. You think that would be, I don't know, something cool. Oh no, it turned into a big thing. I don't like coffee. I like juice. Coffee isn't wellness. I mean, so when we get into these more complex issues, it gets even harder. And get yourself a good support system if you don't have one and you get on the board, because you will need it. You have to have an outlet, write, paint, run, something, because you have to find a way to channel that stress, and you will be called names that you would never think anyone would ever call you. I've been called a bully. I was a union president. I was a bully then. I'm not a bully on the school board. So, you have to have thick skin, and you have to figure out a way to channel it so it doesn't get to you.
Thank you. That's all great advice. I really appreciate that. But now we're going to switch a little bit of direction, and we're going to ask some questions to our teachers, and some of these teachers are also school board members as well. So we have a couple of questions for teachers. Because teachers are very much a big part of the school district and implementing these policies. So the first question I have is, what do you need from your school board to feel safe in supporting LGBTQ+ students in your school districts?
I get to go. I teach at a school that is very LGBTQ safe and supportive. A year ago, I went to our head of school and said, hey, can I make a pride flag for my classroom that says I love you in all the tribal languages? And immediately said, yes, and we're gonna make copies, we're gonna put them up all over the school. And so knowing I had that ability to, I've always been open with the kids about loving who they are, and having administration say that we can do that and backed with policy that we're going to support our kids is really powerful. We have our policies in West Allis, West Milwaukee that says, controversial issues can be on a base by base situation. And we had folks driving around the district looking for ways to be mad at us. And we had a first grade teacher with a rainbow flag. We told her, move it to another wall because we support what you want to support. But there's always, like Leah said, there's always someone out there who is going to look for ways to tear us down. And on the end of the day, we're always going to be on the side of wellness and what's best for our kids. If we are supporting policies and telling folks it's okay to support LGBTQ kids, and let's go for it.
Okay, I'm not feeling very good today. I agree with you, and I think that it's really important that school board members learn about and educate themselves about the statistics that are out there. If you're not familiar with the YRBS student surveys, when you look at the stats, it's suicide rates, bullying. There's just, it's just, when you see it, it just makes me cry because I was in that position too, growing up. And it's nice that there's more support, but I still think that, yes, we need to support students. It needs to be in our curriculum. If we don't have a policy that indicates that we will have curriculum that has people that when they look in the curriculum, they see themselves. If that's not there, you're going to continue to have many issues because you do not belong. And you also need to support us as teachers on how to handle things. A lot of people just don't know. And so everyone across the board really needs to educate themselves and figure out. Thank you to whoever put the YRBS report out there. There's too many kids who attempt suicide. There's too many staff members who will leave the profession because they don't feel supported in their districts. And that's a shame, and that's awful, actually. And so we need to have in all sorts of different areas about Stonewall and history. And, there's a lot of, that one's an easy one, but there's a lot of information and that should be in the curriculum. And it's just really imperative. And then support those teachers and those advocates. That's the most important thing, I believe, that you can do for our community.
Thank you. I have another question for teachers is, this is, and there might be some teachers out there, might be some school board members out there like wondering, what do teachers do, to support LGBTQ students? So I'd love to hear from teachers, like, what are some of the ways that you have been able to provide an affirming space to LGBTQ plus students?
Well, something that I've started doing is, waving my pride flag around my classroom, making sure we include non-binary characters when I'm writing stories with my students. You would not believe the fact that most of these kids have never had a they, them character when they write a story. So we talk about that. We buy books and make sure we have unique characters and everything in between. Our school very thankfully allowed us to start a gay straight alliance. And we have been very actively running this, and for about 3 months now, and we average 30 kids in a small private school. And it's been very well supported by our board, by our head of school. And our school has internally started talking about ways we can protect students whose parents aren't supportive. Internally in our school, why, we can start putting things like preferred pronouns, preferred names, because that's information for us to use. If parents aren't ready to support their child, then we can support them in a safest space possible. Because like Laura said, it is devastating, the suicide rate and homeless rate that occurs because families can't be supportive. And I know I can't speak for everyone, but I know for the teachers, they're my kids. From the minute they get me in 4th grade till however long, they're always gonna be my kids. And if the only person they hear all day is I love you and I support you, and if you need something, let me know, it's wonderful. And that's a huge way teachers can support their students.
I noticed in the chat, libraries, making sure there's a wide variety of books, as you said, with they, them, and there's, the Trevor Project, and having that information that's out there with those hotline numbers so individuals can find that information readily instead of trying to Google who knows what, and potentially, some they've got filters that go through the internet, and that could put someone at risk depending upon those filters. And I think that working with the groups that are on here will really just help everyone move forward. And I remember having a conversation with a teacher who his belief was that it wasn't okay for people like me and students and whatever. And I just said, I value your beliefs. And when you come on campus and are on school property and you're taking trips, school-sponsored trips, your first priority is to ensure the safety of all kids. And if you're unable to do that for all students, then you're probably in the wrong field. I think that really kind of opened his eyes, like, whoa. And yeah.
Thank you. So I appreciate hearing from the teachers, but we definitely want to hear from the families that are affected by some of these school policies. And I want to direct this first question to Kathy. What do you need from your school board to feel safe and welcome, and for your child to feel safe and welcome in your school district?
Thank you, Wendy. It's in large part having it in the policies such that the LGBTQ youth can be identified by their names and not necessarily their legal names, so that they can feel safe and so that they don't have a dead name. And it allows for them to be identified by their pronouns. It's it's also frustrating when we think that our district has these in policies, but then you get one parent to file a lawsuit. And suddenly there's concerns about the school district having to backpedal. And then it feels as if our youth are not protected. So being able to have those policies in place, firmly in place, and I like the idea of writing it from the standpoint of protecting everyone so that if you get a school board panel that isn't quite as inclusive, then it's harder for them to dismantle that. In terms of with teachers, having the teachers checking in with their students to make sure that they're being supportive to the students. I know one of the biggest complaints from other trans parents and other trans youth is substitute teachers that unfortunately commonly the list of students that they're given has the dead name and not the name of the student. And so then they're harmed every single time there's a substitute teacher. So it's having teachers putting in all the effort as they prepare to have a substitute teacher to protect our youth. Another big thing is gender neutral bathrooms. There's not enough. And when there are gender neutral bathrooms, really encouraging people who have other options for bathrooms to use those instead, so that those students who don't have as many options can actually have the opportunity to go to the bathroom during the day. For some trans youth, they can't ever go to the bathroom at school because they can't ever get into a gender neutral bathroom. And then lastly, it's making sure that our school board and the school administration and the teachers all have training on how to support our LGBTQ youth.
I just want to take a moment to thank,
just
to thank Kathy for that. And, part of my work with Diverse and Resilient is going into school districts to provide trainings. And we often, specifically about the gender neutral bathroom situation, there are things that student wellness and well-being is impacted by these things in ways that we hardly even see. For example, in my work, we hear from students often things like, oh, I just don't go to the bath, or I just don't drink water during the day. So, kids navigating their 8, 9, 10 hours being at the school building without drinking any water, the physical, the mental impacts of that kind of situation, day after day, week after week, those are some of the hidden ways that things like, because a young person is usually dealing with so many things, they're not going to offer you the information that they're not drinking water at all, right? They're going to talk about things that seem more important in their minds, or that are more like whatever the crisis at the moment is. They're not going to tell you they haven't had water at school for the past 3 months or whatever. So, it goes deeper than we might think, those issues of gender neutral restrooms and things like that. So thank you for bringing that up, Kathy.
Thank you. I think that's really important for school board candidates to hear what the families actually need, and what the students actually need. So appreciate you both bringing that up. So if you have a question for Will, can you share some examples of when educators have helped you feel affirmed and welcomed in your school?
Yeah, so I am always really appreciative of my teachers who make the effort to include me. Because so I first came out to my friends end of 7th grade, and I got very negative support from them. So I had no one who supported me. However, in 8th grade, my English teacher, she has these weekly assignments we do on different articles, and she included one on LGBTQ youth. And she, on these reflections, she always includes a space for us to put other information or opinions. And that's actually where I technically came out to her. And I just said I use they, them. And afterward, she came up to me privately and she asked what I needed, like what I was comfortable with, and she also like apologized if I had felt as though she wasn't supportive enough in the past. And I was really appreciative of that, because that was really the first time I felt like I was being respected. And I feel like just her using my name and her using my correct pronouns within like the class made my friends and peers who previously weren't supportive of me warm up to the idea that I was queer. And then freshman year, I was in the GSA, and we did our professional development day, where we had like a training where the GSA students were the ones who actually conducted the class and were the ones who engaged and spoke to the teachers. So I think it's also really important to include our like queer youth in on those, because we are the ones that are experiencing this. We know what we're going through the best. And I really feel as though we are the ones who can best share and elaborate what we need.
Thank you, Quill. I appreciate that. I know we've heard from other youth in other events we've had where they wish that school board members would listen to what they need. And so I appreciate Quill you being on and sharing that, and Kathy and Nick sharing what students actually need. So I think one of the things that we're hoping candidates and future school board members also get from this is that, you know, to remember the students who are directly affected by policies that are passed. So I think we have some time for questions. So I'm going to ask Michele if she could. She's been monitoring our chat with us, and if you can just ask a few questions that have come up.
Sure. The first thing I want to elevate from the chat is, Quill, you are getting a lot of love in the chat, so make sure you read those. And then here are a couple questions that folks asked. One of them was, how can we support students when school boards consider the rainbow a political image and it cannot be displayed in a classroom? Does anybody want to talk about that? Or what you could also talk about is ways, how do you support LGBTQ plus youth in a district that might have something like that going on? What are ways you can show up for students?
So I can talk a little bit. So yeah, that's definitely regional, I feel like, because our district, for example, bought rainbow flags and put them everywhere. And we have our P flag that hands out stickers, and we've got luggage tags, and I think 90% of the student population has them on their backpack or coat or whatever. I think it's, you know, it's coming up with, if your school is not okay with you having a rainbow flag, then don't have rainbow stickers and rainbow pencils. And we write policies to be specific. Oftentimes we don't think of every possible scenario, so find the loopholes.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm in an area where, like, Appleton, I would say, is probably like the most, quote, progressive area, that along with Green Bay, and then it gets less and less so the further you go out. So, you know, as someone, like in my work, we are all often like kind of strategizing with teachers and school district folks about like how you can do this when school board policies do things like this, or even go further. Like, we think about these lawsuits that certain districts have come under because of their like policies related to LGBTQ students. So we are trying to strategize with folks as far as like, how do you affirm students when you can't do certain things that would explicitly affirm them? So, you know, if you're an educator and you're able at the first day of class to like introduce yourself with your pronoun, or if you know that you have a student who, you know, uses they them pronouns and they are comfortable with that, just like being explicit about modeling those, of course, with the students' consent and permission. Yeah, those are two small tips.
Thanks, everyone. Another one, and I'm pretty sure this was inspired by Quill, and I love this question. What are ways other district school boards make themselves accessible to students? And how can students connect with admin and school boards?
I think this is something that's been hard, especially with COVID, not being able to have students come in. We used to have students come and present to, like, as ambassadors. We did have one of our high schools, the Black student council came to us and asked, could we start introducing like a Black history course, and working with those students and their advisors. We got professors to come in. And I think something that, because we were so open and we were so able to, you know, quickly have the kids come in, I know for our board, it kind of showed off that we are willing to listen, and especially with the children. I know I go to as many events as possible, and when I go there, I'm wearing my HRC pin, or I'm wearing an HRC shirt as a subtle way to be like, I'm someone you could talk to if that was something, a situation that you felt comfortable with. I'm not going to walk up to a kid and be like, talk to me about XYZ if it's not the right situation. But getting kids to know who you are and accessibility in that way, I think is going to be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. So all of our committees for the school board all have student reps on them, and they're not just, you know, sort of passively there. They are actively participating, and they serve as a conduit both directions. So they're bringing us news from the student body and they're reporting back. And we really appreciate and value that partnership. And we're all listening when they talk, because it really is special to have them have that voice at the board level. Also, as a class project, one of our 7th grade ELA projects is that they get to write to the school board members with some of the issues that they have in their classrooms and in their buildings, and then we get to respond back. So I think just keeping that connection open and active is really a good thing for our student body.
Thank you all so much. We're also getting a couple questions that are somewhat similar, which is, you know, some districts have anti-equity candidates running, and they're saying that districts don't need equity statements because we don't want to be labeling our students. And another question sort of in the same vein is, people who want to throw out books and dictate that inclusiveness is included in the curriculum are running for our local school boards and being well funded and getting their messages out. How can we encourage people to run on a platform of inclusiveness given the climate out there?
Well, I decided to run partly because I'm like attracted to the fire, like the flame. But also because for me, it's a longer game. Like, I love this community. I'm going to be here, whether I win the election or not. I'm going to continue running, whether I win this time or not. And, you know, part of what I want to do through my candidacy is, you know, is to like inspire other folks, not because I'm so special, but because I am pretty regular, right? I mean, I'm a normal person who works full time, and this is something I care about, so I decided to do it. And like I said earlier on, I wasn't expecting how much support I got. So I'm hoping to spread that message that, you know, there is a lot of support in our community. I think Kristen was talking about earlier, the loudest voices in the room aren't always the most representative. So we need to like cultivate more of those quieter voices through our own example that, like, you know, you can do it too. There is support for you if you want to step up. And yeah, so that's what I would say about that.
I think in the climate that we're in right now, it is really hard to get well-composed people to run for school board because they don't want to deal with, like Leah said, building like that thick skin. It's ridiculous, some of the stuff that we've gotten over the last year. I'm literally sitting in front of all my quilting supplies because that's my outlet for dealing with stuff. But calling people out on, you know, we have a person who's coming to our school to meetings and talking against transgender students to the point where we started talking about what are public comment, how do public comments, what's the level of First Amendment rights, because it's becoming atrocious. And as someone who is an ally and someone who loves our students, I don't want to sit there in my space because it looks like I'm allowing it to happen. And although there are laws saying we can't respond to a public comment in that moment, it's something we're trying to work out because I don't think it's okay to sit there as a board member and make it appear as if I'm okay with what he's saying just because I can't make a response in the moment. I'm thinking about turning my seat around while he speaks on that because I feel like a statement has to be said. And thankfully, where I've been, those candidates have not been winning. Because at the end of the day, people, they'll complain about budget, they'll complain about curriculum, but they also don't want to lose that voice. And when you're on a board, sometimes there's moments where you can't speak. And I think that has a lot to do with those who want to make the loudest noise in the room. And Nick, I appreciate everything you've been saying tonight. I've been writing down so many ideas, and Kimberly and Leah as well, and Laura, I'm always learning. So I just had to put out there that this has been really wonderful for myself as well.
On the public comments, you should check out our statement that we have out there because we've had where people come and then they just start spewing and and you can't respond and you have to just sit there and nod and not really smile, but you sit there and take it. And we very much call out, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. And we run a lot of those types of policies through WASB to make sure that we're not going to get our hand slapped in any way. Just let the smart lawyer people review it first. But I would definitely check it
Leah,
out.
Can you share what WASB is?
Oh, it's Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And they have a great legal department that will review policies. We had a policy review done a few years ago, and we're still going through policies and making updates and getting everything where it needs to be. We looked at a policy last night that was written in 1979 and hasn't been looked at since. So.
Well, I think we have time for one more question. And I think I'd like to close with a question. What advice would you give to someone running for school board? Like, what lessons learned? Like, maybe if you could go back in the time machine and, you could give yourself advice when you were starting on this journey. What tips would you give someone if people could just go around and give one tip?
I would also like to know what Quill thinks we should do if they're still available to respond.
Nick, can you repeat the question because Quill wasn't paying attention? High schooler.
Yeah, for you, Quill, I was asking folks what advice they would give to people running for office, but what advice would you give to people running for office?
I don't know because I'm honestly mostly focused on a teacher school level, because that is where I feel like my voice is most heard and listened to, because the teachers that I talk to know me, and I feel like they are more easy to approach. So I'm not sure, but
I like to, I think Will has a very good point, for them, they're looking at their school level, but at the school board level, the school board is overseeing all the schools, and there's transgender youth in the elementary schools, so it's really the school board, to be able to have the policies in place for all the schools, because we have trans youth of all ages. And so wherever they're at in their lives, they need support.
To jump into that, that's where you really have to have the teacher advocate to walk alongside with the parents and the school board to help all the different parties, because there's a lot of different levels that people are at. And so you really have to kind of meet people where they're at and help them through things, and also have the school board understand that, lawsuits do happen over these things, and they need to take it very seriously. And as you were saying, Kristen, look, talk with the attorneys, talk with the school board. I can't remember what it is.
I think my advice that I've learned over the years is that back when I was running and in my early years as a school board member, I was really focused on just sort of nodding and being comfortable with the discomfort if I heard someone saying something I didn't agree with. And now I know that I have to use my outside voice. They need to hear right away, this isn't acceptable, because the student body and the teachers need to see where their advocates are, and they need to hear it very clearly.
And to piggyback off what Kimberly said, don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't know, and don't be afraid to be the dissenting voice. Even if you're the only one, you will sleep better at night knowing that you voted your conscience, even if it's not going to pass. So that would be my advice.
I really appreciate those tips. I will be taking them. And my tip has nothing to do with being LGBTQ. My tip is get a campaign manager, get people to help you. Don't try to do it all yourself. And that's probably that's a lesson I've had to learn myself, even though people were telling me to do all of those things. Yeah, so get people to help you run.
Quick tip, don't run during a pandemic. Second tip, go big, go bold. Everybody who runs has a why. Don't forget that why. Why are you there? What's your purpose for? It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than people think it is. And it's not just one Monday every other week. It's every Monday and every public comment on Facebook and every email. And at the end of the day, you know who you are, and don't get lost in those loud voices. Don't get lost in the political climate. Just be you, and you'll be amazing.
Thank you, everyone. And Michele, thank you for monitoring the questions. I appreciate that. So we're coming to the end, but I wanted to give our panelists, if anybody had any final statements or any wrap-up things that they would like to leave our attendees with. Wanted to give that opportunity to people.
I really wanted to thank Kathy and Quill. It's very hard to put yourselves out there. I have a child who attends a rainbow group, so I really appreciate, I took so many notes on the random things around me that I really appreciate as someone who's always trying to learn. And I just want to thank everyone who's here tonight who made the effort on a Tuesday night to come sit in this amazing webinar to learn more. And you're always welcome to reach out to me. I'm on West Dallas School Board, so you're always welcome to find me.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. This is cup filling. It energizes me to continue the good fight over the next, 13 days? Oh my goodness. So I just really appreciate sharing this space with all of you tonight.
My thanks as well. And thank you to the participants that come, because when you show up, the school boards recognize that, yes, there is support for this. And yes, we will continue.
Well, I just want to offer my final thanks. I want to thank all of the co-sponsors, AFT Wisconsin, GSAFE, Fair Wisconsin, HRC, for putting this together. And thank you so much to our panelists, all of you. This is, we couldn't do it without you. We really appreciate all that you've been willing to share with our attendees. And just for those who are listening, we are going to be sharing this video out later this week. We also put together a toolkit. Some of it includes some of the statistics that Laura mentioned, things that you can share, things that will help you in your final weeks as you're running for office. You also should get an email that talks about all of the, gets you connected to the different organizations as well. But with that, I just, again, thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Thank you for sharing your advice. Thank you for putting yourselves out here, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, everyone.
Could I just jump in here, Wendy? I think we also need to remember our gay, lesbian, transgender parents, our families, and forums. I worked with our district quite a bit about, wait a minute, your mother, your father, well, wait a minute, that doesn't really fit my family. And so, whether you're a school board member or running for school board, as administrators and other, there's just a lot that can be done to help families feel included in whatever way we define our families. So it's really a rich topic to explore. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And I did see an email question about all the resources. Yes, everybody who RSVP'd, and I also had a couple of school board candidates reach out to me and ask for the recording. Everybody will get that access to it. So thank you so much, everyone, and you have an amazing evening, and good luck for the final stretch of your campaigns, and have a great day. Thank you.